it's really important that you spend some time during the day to not have the news on in the background.
Children can become really their emotions can become very heightened and they can become dysregulated very, very quickly. Everything on the TV and everything on social media at the moment is pandemic, COVID-19, people are dying, martial law, getting tracking devices.
Every time we switch on the TV, there's a news story. There's constant 24-hour news stories that we can be watching, and most of those stories are really negative. It's all doom and gloom, it's about how many deaths there's been, there's how many people are sick, how many respirators we don't have.
President Trump telling us that we should inject disinfectants into our veins in order to stop the spread. It's too much, it's too overwhelming. Our brains are not designed and built to receive so much negative energy.
I like to think of our consumption of news as a metaphor for the food that we put in our body. So you can imagine if you're eating junk food all day, if you're really, consuming a lot of foods that aren't nutritious for our body, that we're going to feel pretty crap. And news is much the same. If we are taking all of those stories in, it's going to make us feel also pretty crap in our mood.
When we put negative thoughts into our brain continually, then that's going to impact and affect our moods. And that means we're going to start to feel overwhelmed and we're going to start to feel stressed, anxious, and depressed. Our brain is a supercomputer. So whatever information we put into it, that's the program it's going to play.
This can have a really huge impact on our nervous system. Quite basically, our nervous system has two parts. So one part is called the sympathetic nervous system, and that's our stress response. That's our flight or fight response. So you might notice that if you are watching the news and you're seeing images of people in hospitals dying, sick, that even as I'm talking about it now, I'm kind of starting to feel a little bit anxious. My heart rate's going up a little bit and I'm feeling a little bit kind of, some of that adrenaline coursing around my body. That's our sympathetic nervous system. So that is activated when we watch the news and when we're hearing all of these stories going on and on and on and being played over and over. So you can imagine if you've got the news on in the background a lot, that could have a really significant impact on your brain and on your body and consequently possibly on your mental health.
We need to limit the amount of negative information that we are putting into our own brains, and we absolutely have to protect how much negative information is going into our children's brains. Children are very, very easily impacted by the news. Finding time for maybe yourself and your partner to watch the news when the children aren't around is the best option. Limiting what the children are looking at on social media with regards to news. And if there is something like President Trump telling us to inject ridiculous liquids into our body, make a joke about it, have a laugh with the kids and say, how silly is this information, rather than making the children feel overwhelmed and scared.
Even though they might not understand some of the news that's being spoken about, they will actually pick up on your emotional world. So if you're stressed, they're like little barometers. They're going to pick up on that stress and they're going to feel that stress.
Humans don't reach emotional maturity until they're 25 years of age. So that means a child has absolutely no hope of trying to comprehend, understand, and put the information that they're receiving from the news into the box that it needs to belong. I'm observing that a lot of adults are having difficulty understanding and managing their own overwhelm. So trying to expect a child to comprehend the news, you're putting too much pressure on them. It's not realistic. They're not going to cope, and it's going to lead to really, really high levels of fear and anxiety. and you don't want your children to start having panic attacks over something that we can actually manage within our own household. My own daughter is very sensitive to the world news, and she was in the other room the other day, and I didn't think that she could hear the news items that were on. There was a news story that was on about a 5-year-old girl that passed away from COVID-19 in the UK. She came out and said straight away, "Mum, you told me that this wasn't affecting children and that we were safe." And then she started to show me signs of anxiety. She got quite distressed. I had to sit her down and then say, the little 5-year-old in the UK did have an underlying condition. She was already sick, and I had to sit and explain to her that it's not common for children to be impacted and affected by COVID-19. And then I promptly turned the news off.
If you find these videos helpful, hit the subscribe button and we'll see you next time.